Hi, everyone. I know you're all filtering back from the tables, but we're starting our next session. It's so nice to see you all. My name is Niamh O'Sullivan. Many of you know me. I'm the manager of social enterprise and networks at Social Canada. We are delighted to have you all here today to launch our new resource, the Guide to Social Enterprise. So many of you have heard me talking about this over the last 12 months. We've been working on streamlining this. It could have been a massive resource, maybe 150, 200 pages long. We've done our best to consolidate and streamline it into 65 pages. It's totally jam-packed with stories, tools, and questions for all of you to consider when you're figuring out where to go next with your social enterprise. So we're delighted to have Mike Toy and Tori open today's conversation and talk about the history of social enterprise. But why did we decide to redo this guide? So the first guide came out in 2006 and again in 2010, and it was really focused on starting a nonprofit social enterprise. But now in 2024, we're so far beyond that. Many social enterprises have been around for decades, and more are starting to incorporate not only as a nonprofit, but so many other options. So who is this guide for? Whether you're the leader of a social enterprise, a student, an educator, an entrepreneur, or you work in the private sector, for the government, or you're a politician, we encourage you to read this guide. If you've been operating a social enterprise for decades, or you're thinking of starting one, there's something in this guide that's relevant for you. We want everyone to read the guide, and it's available to download for free on our website. I think Emma's putting all the links in the chat right now. So let's start at the beginning. We're all here today to talk about social enterprise. But what is a social enterprise? In Social Canada's work and in this guide, we define social enterprise as a business that sells goods or services, has a social, cultural, or environmental purpose, and reinvests the majority, so at least 51% of their profits, back into their purpose, prioritizing people and planet over individual owner and shareholder wealth. At their core, social enterprises are mission-driven. Rather than starting with profits and shareholders at the center of their endeavors, social enterprises put purpose first. The social, cultural, or environmental purpose they want to address through their work is the reason many social enterprises are created in the first place. Unlike a traditional charity that has a social value outcome or a traditional business that is set up to gain a financial return, a social enterprise has a blended value of return on investment and social value. Because they reinvest profits and are mission or purpose driven, the financial impact translates to meaningful social change. Social enterprise is a business model that intentionally creates social value, and it contributes to building community capital instead of rewarding shareholders. In the guide, we break down the history of social enterprise development over the past 2 decades. Mike already alluded to a lot of this, from the creation of the original guide, the creation of the Social Enterprise Council of Canada, the launch of Social Canada, us, right up to where we are today, 10 years later, celebrating our anniversary. As many of you know, at Social Canada, we offer third-party certification for social enterprise. So before Social Canada began, our founder, David LePage, was working with social enterprises through enterprising nonprofits. And he said, there's so many social enterprises doing wonderful work. And the issue is that not enough people are buying from social enterprises. So really, we need to increase the demand and market for social enterprises all across Canada. So we have our online directory with over 220 certified social enterprises from all across the country. They come in all different shapes and sizes, and they sell a variety of goods and services. If you're interested in becoming certified, we'd love to have you join the movement and be part of our ecosystem. More information about certification will be shared in the chat, or feel free to reach out to me after this. So in the guide to social enterprise, we divide it into 3 key sections, depending on where you're at on your journey, whether it's plan, sustain, or grow. The first section is plan. This is where you can begin if you're new to social enterprise, maybe you're in the early planning phases, you're exploring if social enterprise is right for you, or if you just want a refresher. The next section is sustain. So this is for social enterprises that are now up and running successfully, 3 to 5 to 10 years in. You've worked out the kinks in production and sales, board and staff are engaged and supportive. Financially, you have a healthy cash flow and assets, and your mission objectives are measurable and being achieved. You may be flourishing, or you may be struggling. It's time to re-examine and plan beyond those initial stages of implementation to review and assess and potentially revitalize your enterprise. The last section, what I'm really excited about, is grow. Now, there's many folks here today that work at really well-established social enterprises, some of which may have been around for over 4 decades, and they operate multiple social enterprises. They are sustainable, successful, and are achieving their goals. So we decided to create a section of the guide to address grow. This is for an organization that may be looking to acquire or buy an existing business and operate it as a social enterprise to generate a new stream of revenue, the profits of which feed back into their social mission or purpose. Or maybe they want to expand their current services into a new geographic area and create more employment opportunities. But is growth right for you? Is it aligned with your purpose? Will growing your market increase your value? The guide can take you through the 5 M's and evaluate the right way forward. So the 5 M's, what are they? The 5 M's is a social enterprise business plan framework. Realizing the unique needs for design, operations, and measurement for a blended value business model, our founder, David LePage, and the enterprising nonprofits team developed the 5 M's social enterprise business plan framework: mission, market, manage, money, and measure. They are 5 interconnected components of a social enterprise business system that can be used from conception and launch to sustain and grow. The 5 M's is not just a framework to write a plan or prepare a pitch. It should be a living document that guides and supports the life of a social enterprise, whether you're in the planning, sustain, or growing phase. In the guide, we touch on each M. The first one is mission. So at their core, social enterprises are driven by a central social, environmental, or cultural purpose. Rather than centering shareholder wealth, social enterprises put purpose first. A purpose is the why of an organization and the reason you exist. In the guide, we highlight lots of different case studies woven throughout each of the M's. Some I'd like to spotlight today are Something Beautiful Cafe and Gift Shop in Stonewall, Manitoba. They're owned by Community Living Interlake, and they have a mission to support individuals living with intellectual disabilities to live a fully inclusive life as members of the community. They run a cafe and a gift shop, which creates skills training and employment opportunities for their clients. Another amazing social enterprise is Le Chic Resto Pop in Montreal, Quebec. They are a charity and a community-based organization that operates 2 social enterprises, a cafe and a restaurant, and they offer catering services as well. Both offer affordable meal options for their community. Their mission is to advocate for food security and put pressure on local and provincial government to fund food security and poverty awareness. Most of the food they cook with at the restaurant is provided via the food bank, and their menu changes daily. The next M is market. This focuses on your products or services and who your customers are. Some key questions that you will want to address are: who are you selling to? What is your product? Is there demand for your product? And how will customers find your product? During this phase of your business planning, you will need to conduct external market research, assess internal capacity, and complete a feasibility analysis. Many social enterprises have struggled or failed because they underestimated the importance of this phase of planning. The next M is manage, which considers governance. Some questions you're going to want to ask yourself is: who do you want to be in control of your organization? What is the structure of your business? How do you want decisions to be made? And how do you want your organizational culture to be described in 3 to 5 words? And what sort of financing options do you want to be able to access? We're going to touch on this a little bit more on money. The guide lays out questions which will help you to then formalize your governance by choosing an appropriate legal structure and designing the HR, finance, and administrative strategies and policies that you will need. As many of you know, there's so many different ways to structure a social enterprise. The guide addresses key considerations at each stage of plan, sustain, and grow in more detail. In the plan stage, we explore incorporation options. Here you can see a business model continuum, which shows the spectrum of different types of businesses. Social enterprises can be charities, nonprofits, and hybrid social enterprises. This can include community contribution companies, like what By Social Canada is, a community interest company, or a for-profit in business that's owned by a nonprofit, or a for-profit business with amended articles of incorporation that require profit reinvestment into purpose of 51% or more. They can all be social enterprises. The incorporation model you choose can impact how your social enterprise operates and gets funding, which leads us to money. Money looks at the financial resources you need to start, operate, or scale your social enterprise journey. Money is where you consider what you need to cover your costs, including the cost of developing and delivering on your goods or service. As with each pillar or M in this framework, money is not a standalone consideration. The way you manage your organization, primarily through the legal structure that you choose, will impact the access you may have to different forms of capital. This guide shares information on social finance and other options for finding money and contracts. MP Ryan Turnbull and Mike Toy touched on this earlier, but finance is a key concern or barrier that many social enterprises raise time and time again. One challenge that social enterprises face is due to the fact that there are many different methods in how to structure their business, and there's no one simple way to access finance. Charities can receive donations and issue tax receipts. Nonprofits can apply for grants. For-profits can apply for business loans, credit cards, and take on debt, or they can sell equity in their business. There's a lot to consider when planning your finances. I want to take a moment to shout out Purple and Tapestry Community Capital for helping us develop this graphic, as there's so many nuances and it's quite challenging to explain the different options that exist. And I think the guide does a great job at touching on this. One innovative way to access funding is shared by SPICE, the Solar Power Investment Cooperative of Edmonton, and we spotlight this in a case study. SPICE connects local investors with community organizations to fund solar power projects. SPICE has a cooperative investment model which allows them to gather money from investors, which is held in trust until they've developed a community solar project and raised sufficient funds to realize it. SPICE simplifies the process of solar installation for communities by utilizing private investments to fund solar systems on community buildings. Their model is easy and accessible, requiring no large upfront capital or technical knowledge from building owners or extensive solar knowledge from investors. Financially community-funded energy projects lower the initial barrier of solar projects and offer a long-term income source for both building owner and investors. The last M, but by no means the least, is measure. This considers both social and financial outcomes and metrics. It's important not just to collect data, but to assess your social outcomes impact and financial sustainability. Measure can be quantitative or qualitative. Identifying key stories, particularly of your organization's social outcomes, can be a way of measuring your success, as well as raising awareness of your social purpose and social enterprise model. I want to give a shout out here to the Common Approach to Impact Measurement, as they are leaders when it comes to best practices in impact measurement. In the guide, we spotlight the Common Foundations, which is a resource to learn about 5 essential practices for the how of impact measurement. So as I mentioned, these 5 M's are all interconnected and they're relevant for every phase of the journey you're at, whether it's plan, sustain, or grow. And I really hope you all look at the guide, refer back to it whenever you're facing a conundrum or a challenge, and find questions that may be relevant to your organization and how you can make decisions going forward. I want to take a moment to spotlight grow and how there's so many different ways to grow a social enterprise. One example this year is Embers Staffing Solutions. They've been existing in the lower mainland of BC for over 2 decades, operating their business. And this year they opened a branch in Edmonton, Alberta. So they replicated their existing business in a new geographic area. Or there's Diced Culinary, where they started to offer new goods and services. So they started with a brick and mortar culinary training program years ago. Then they opened restaurants and cafes. Then during the pandemic, they added a nationally accredited online culinary school. And now they're developing a line of merchandise for retail. This is different ways that they can grow, create new services that feed back into their to generating revenue to fulfill their purpose or mission. Maybe there's a different situation. You don't want to start from scratch. So why not buy another pre-existing business where someone has already figured out the growing pains and pressure points? We spotlight some examples of social replication in the guide. You can expand from a single location to offer social replication in the form of licensing, like the raw carrot. Or you can acquire an existing business and turn it into a social enterprise, just like a group of charities did with Just Like Family Home Care. You can see the guide for more details on those case studies. But one I'd really like to spotlight right now is the joint venture of AGM. A joint venture is a strategic partnership where two or more companies develop a new entity in order to collaborate on a specific project or venture. This arrangement allows for each company to pool their resources, expertise, and capital to achieve a common objective and share the risks and rewards. In the case of AGM, Aecon Golden Mile Joint Venture, a nonprofit intermediary called CIEO and a private construction company, many of you may know it, Aecon, they joined forces to create a community-owned construction company that offers construction services such as hydrovac excavation, traffic control, and fiber optic installation. There's a massive redevelopment project taking place in the Golden Mile area of the GTA over the next 20 years, and AGM was created to ensure that local residents receive training and employment opportunities. Through their nonprofit and AGM's majority shareholder, 51% of the profits are reinvested back into the community. And some of these community owners include the Toronto Community Benefit Network, as well as social enterprises such as YWCA Toronto and Out of the Box. The remaining 49% is owned by Aecon Construction. Aecon, as an owner, can leverage their relationships to gain contracts for AGM. As AGM grows its workforce, reputation, and experience over the coming years, Aecon will phase out of the partnership and CIEO will take full ownership of the social enterprise. This is clearly laid out in a partnership agreement that were signed by all parties when the social enterprise was in the planning phase. In the guide, we also have a list of resources and social enterprise developers who support social enterprises from all across the country. Obviously, Buy Social Canada is here to support, hence why we made the guide, but there are so many others who may be more familiar with your local context that can offer supports as well. In the guide, we really highlight the importance of connecting with others in the social enterprise network. There are so many learnings to share and opportunities to network. I loved what Mike said earlier about solidarity and that it's quick alone, but further to together. And that really rings true. What separates social enterprises from traditional businesses is that social enterprises are willing to teach each other. Some examples are the 312 Main co-working space in Vancouver's downtown Eastside. We often host events there and loads of social enterprises have their offices there. The Winnipeg Social Enterprise Centre is also a co-working space where lots of social enterprises and nonprofits share kitchens, boardrooms, and workspaces, and they host regular breakfasts to convene and collaborate. For capacity building, CSED in Ottawa provides a range of services to aspiring and established social enterprises. And there's loads of other social enterprises like Encompass Co-op in Winnipeg. They've supported the development of many work-integrated construction-based social enterprises, some of which we're going to hear about later. Mark Soberano from Building Up has definitely benefited from collaborating with Encompass Co-op, and so many others like Build Up Saskatoon, Impact Construction in St. John's, as well as Aki Energy. All these sister organizations often convene in person for wisdom sharing events. One wonderful case study that I want to touch on is Green Force TO. So the City of Toronto, about 4 years ago, was looking to create a workforce development program for horticulture to look after the city's green program. In 2021, a call for proposal went out and two certified social enterprises, Building Up and Rainscape TO, responded together, stating that they would collaborate on the delivery from the outset. They won the contract in 2021, and since then they've been partnering with each other, and they've been able to take on new opportunities and increase the number of employees they could hire, furthering their purpose while growing their business. Without both these social enterprises together, I doubt they could have gotten the contract. So that's a really great story of collaboration. As we near the end of this presentation, I want to give a big shout out to SAP, our pledge leader, for supporting the development of the Guide to Social Enterprise. Without them, we would not have been able to present this and spent the last 12 months working on this. wonderful resource, and we hope you find it all useful. So looking ahead, what can all of us do to take action to grow the social enterprise movement beyond today? I recommend you check out our website. We've got loads of free resources and reports. Last year, we worked really hard to create our Sell with Impact report, which spotlights stories and research from the Canadian social enterprise sector. Throughout the year, as many of you know, we host lots of webinars and training courses, whether it's procurement for social value suppliers, storytelling for social value suppliers. We can offer a private cohort. And last but not least, the biggest call to action is we ask you to download and promote the Guide to Social Enterprise. We hope you enjoy it and we find it very useful throughout all phases of your journey. If you have any questions about social enterprise or the work By Social Canada does, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can see my email on the screen. I'm easy to find. Now, next up, we're going to hear from some social enterprises. As we move from one session to the next, this session will end and you may get put back into the tables, but sadly, there's not enough time to start a conversation. The next videos will start live. Thank you all. See you soon.
My name is Marwan Kogali, and I'm the founder and executive director for Infiniguard Security. Infiniguard Security is a social enterprise based in Regent Park that's aimed to provide free security training and livable wages for at-risk youth, women, and newcomers to Canada. Our team is composed of dedicated professionals who are not only skilled in providing top-tier security services, but are also passionate about making a positive impact in the communities they serve.
Hey, my name is Shahir. I'm a resident at 130 River. Just want to say the concierge here is amazing. They've always got your parcels, they've got your back, they're watching traffic, they're not letting strangers in and out, so just perfect. This guy's the best, by the way.
I went to school around here, and one of the things that my classmates and I lamented was the lack of opportunities to get into the workforce. One of the things that Infiniguard has done well is given some of the young guys a chance to get real life experience. I'm seeing some of these young guys come in, maybe not the most socially adept, but they're learning to become professionals. They're learning to be assertive without being rude. The infrastructure has improved a lot in the area since I was young, and it's nice that there's a company like Infiniguard engaging in community building to go along with it.
At Infiniguard, we're not only securing spaces, we're also securing futures. Visit infiniguard.ca to learn more.
I think we see a lot less women in the trades because a lot of women might not think that they have it in them to do the tougher jobs, but we most certainly do. I grew up in a bad neighborhood, and the choices I made in life weren't always the greatest. For the past, I'd say 10 years now, I've been staying out of trouble, staying out of the streets, and just focusing on my family and work. My last job kind of had me stable for a long time, and then I wanted to move up in life, and that's what brought me over to Community Builders program. I had no knowledge of construction whatsoever, and they're very patient with you, and they take it step by step. Now, I've learned how to paint. I didn't know how to paint properly. I thought I could paint, but you don't really know until you do it. Flooring, baseboards, tiling, and it's kind of like just climbing a ladder. Each step you get higher and higher with your knowledge, and you learn a lot, and you have different trainers every 2 weeks, so you're learning something else. I've seen people coming into the program in their early 20s, not having a job, not having any job experience, and coming in and learning the tools and learning how to use them, and so far they're doing an amazing job. The sky's the limit.